Good morning to Australia, good evening in New York and California and Florida and everywhere else. Today's learning is dedicated in honor of everybody who is part of an in-person group. There's a new group that started in Borough Park. There's a new group that started in Muncie. And I have to say that the in-person groups are really the best way to gain from what we're doing here. What we're doing here, we love when it's interactive and it's so beautiful. But I think there is something so special when the group is small, whether it's in person or on Zoom, and really everybody interacts and everybody knows each other. There's something so beautiful about that. Today, we're diving into part 2 of the book, Your Awesome Self. And the beginning of that is all about Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Yisrael, Hashem is our power and He is one. And that talks about Hashem, that whole section talks about Hashem's power in 3 dimensions. 1 is how Hashem is in charge of everything in this world. 2 is how Hashem is our personal empowerment. And 3 is how we can help ourselves deal with pain. So today we're just going to talk about the resentment piece. How can, this is the big question that all of us have, and it was fun for me to think about this and to speak to some people today in preparation for tonight. How can we help ourselves stop feeling so resentful all the time? And then when we do feel resentful, because we inevitably do, how can we help ourselves move out of that resentment very, very quickly as possible? So first, let's define resentment. Resentment is a feeling of slow burning anger towards another person. I call it slow burning, slow, because it's not like anger. Anger is like a passionate fire, like a quick burning fire. It burns strong. There's a high level of energy. Anger is usually very hard to contain. If you're angry at a person, they're likely to know about it because anger is loud, it's noisy, it's all over the place. You can't hide it, right? But resentment is different. Resentment is like a slow burning fire because it's like anger, but it's quiet. In a certain sense, it's worse than anger because anger, I feel it, I release it, I'm done. We get over it, right? But resentment is like functional misery. We dislike the person or we're upset with the person, but we don't do anything about it. We're just going to stay with this. Or I'm like, I'm going to stay with this. I'm fine. I can handle it. It's really fine, right? But we're really not fine, right? Except that, of course, it's not at all fine. And that's why I call it like a slow burning fire. It eats us up because we're holding on to it, and it eats up the relationship without leaving room for repair because officially we're fine, right? Sometimes we feel resentment towards other people, especially people who are close to us. And sometimes we could even feel resentful towards ourselves. We blame ourselves. We feel guilty for things that go wrong in our lives. We're upset with our own selves. We dislike ourselves. We don't fully accept and love ourselves. Instead, we're disappointed with ourselves. So we're resentful towards the part of us or we have this ideal version of who we want ourselves to be. And then we're angry and resentful towards the person we actually are. And we do that to other people too, but we do that to ourselves, right? Now, all of our blame and resentment towards other people, and also our shame and our guilt and the resentment towards ourselves, all of it has one thing in common. Behind all of our resentment and blaming, there is the understanding that someone or something is responsible for the damage. Someone did this. Someone messed me over, right? Someone caused this to happen. Someone caused me to have a bad day. It's because of this person or that thing that I am not able to be happy, that I'm not able to function, that I'm not able to be the person I want to be. And every time we're upset, some people tell me, I'm not resentful, right? But then if we think about it, sometimes we're not carrying resentments over a long period of time, but really every time we're upset within any problematic situation, it always seems to be that a person is causing and creating the problem. And that's also a certain measure of resentment, right? When we feel that it's a person in our life or it's our own self that is to blame for the reason we can't be the person we want to be, that's resentment. At the core of resentment, it's a belief that someone did this, right? Someone is causing us this hurt, someone's causing us this damage. And then if we go a little bit deeper than that, resentment is not just the belief that someone did this, it's also the belief that someone has the power to control us. Someone has the power to force us, to compel us to be something or someone, or do something or someone or something that we don't want to do. And my question is, and this is where I really want to start getting into it, in terms of the work of Shema Yisrael, that belief that the fundamental belief of Yiddishkeit, right? Is it even possible? Is it really possible for someone to cause us damage? Is it possible for a person in our life to actually do something to prevent us from having something that we need, or to get in our way of doing something that we want to do? Is it even possible for another person to control us? And this connects to the second principle of the 12 principles, the most fundamental. It's really the most, the foundation of the entire Yiddishkeit, of all of Jewish faith, is that it's in 6 words: Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is our power, and He is one. And the word power obviously means God, right? But when we say God, we mean the one who has the authority, the one who's in charge, the one who has direction. Power is a force of action or inaction. So when we say that Hashem is our only power, we're affirming that only Hashem can cause action or inaction in this world. There's no other power. There's nothing and nobody who has power to do something to us or to anyone outside of Hashem's will. So it's not possible if there's no other power altogether, if there's no true existence, because Hashem is the only one animating everything, right? So it's not possible rationally, from this perspective, for anyone to cause us damage. At least that's according to, right, our belief in Yiddishkeit. If we want to believe in Hashem, if Hashem is true and Hashem is the one and only power in this world, then there is no other. And that means that this moment in time, my problem, my situation, my challenge, whatever it is that I'm looking at, is happening, is ordered, and the flow of energy is only between me and Hashem. It's not between any other person. It's directly, there's that flow of energy from Hashem to me, and from me to Hashem, or from me out to the world. But I'm not a result. I'm not a victim of anyone or anything. Hashem is in charge of it all, because Hashem is the only cause of everything and anything. Now, of course, we also talked about resentment being that feeling that I'm compelled, I'm forced, right? So how does that connect? Because when Hashem is our power, we know that Hashem gives if we believe in Hashem, and Hashem is true, and Hashem is the absolute value, and Hashem is the absolute power, and nothing and nobody can take away Hashem's power. It's funny, years ago, my husband had this joke. When I would get upset, he would be like, Shterny, 99.9% Hashem is in charge. And it was always a joke, because really 99.9%, like the 1% he's not in charge, he would just say that kind of to wake me up. And I'd be like, wait, what? Right? Because the truth is that a 99% truth is a 100% lie. So if we say that Hashem is in charge of the world, that means it's 100% true. So from that perspective that Hashem is in charge, and that power is untouchable, it's unstoppable, nobody could get in Hashem's way. So too, we also believe, right, that Hashem gives each and every one of us our own power, our own empowerment, our power of choice. And just as Hashem's power is unstoppable, so is our own power of choice. Hashem gives each and every one of us a unique responsibility, a purpose in this world, right? And we're responsible for our behavior. We're responsible for what we do. We're responsible for what we think. We are in charge of everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do. That's up to us. With that responsibility for our behavior, with that charge, with the accountability for our choices, we also get the empowerment to choose. We also get the empowerment, the possibility, the limitless possibility of choice. Now, obviously, We don't have the choice of circumstances because that's coming from Hashem. A lot of times we don't get to choose exactly, the weather or things outside of ourselves or other people's behavior. We don't get to choose our past. We don't get to choose where we were born, how we were born, to whom we were born, our whole history. We don't get to choose anything that has already happened. But right this moment, we have Bechira. We have the power of choice. We could choose what we're consciously thinking about in our minds. We could choose what we're going to say. We could choose what we're going to do. And this is Hashem's gift to each and every one of us. It's what makes us uniquely human, right? Because we could rise above our instincts. Animals also have instincts, just like we do. We have instincts. We have that instinctive personality, that the fight or flight response and the protective nature and our personality and all that we're born with. We have that instinct, but because we also have the power of choice, we have the power of choice, and we could choose, and we're always responsible for our choices. So nobody can force us to do anything, to feel anything. We have our own power of choice, and it comes from Hashem. So nobody can take it away from us. And people could make our situations difficult. People could litter our path. People could, throw rocks in our road. But ultimately, we are the drivers of our lives. Unless we give away the driver's seat, unless we decide that somebody else is in charge. Unless we decide that somebody else has the power, which happens all the time. We all do that. I do that too, right? Subconsciously, we feel like intimidated by a person. We decide that they have more power than us. We feel they're more authoritative. We feel they're more controlling, and they are. They have maybe they have more higher energy, but we still are responsible and accountable for our choices. And even if it feels compelling, just like our own moods sometimes could be compelling, other people's personalities and orders and moods could also be compelling. And so we always have the choice, right? But the challenge is that Hashem has hidden himself in this world. And on the outside of his hiddenness, that's where we live, right? Over there, it appears that people and things have their own independent power. Whoever has the most influence, whoever has the most money, whoever has the loudest voice, that's who has control. That's who has the power, the authority. That's how we live. We live within Hashem's hiddenness. We live within the illusion that Hashem's power is just a concept. It's just an idea that's inspiring, but it doesn't actually have a real impact in our lives. And to us, it feels like people could control us. People could force us to do things we don't really want to do, or to behave in a way that's not true to our authentic selves. It feels like we don't have free choice. In the book, we call that mindset or that reality, that space, that time zone, otherness. We call it otherness because it's other than the truth of Hashem's exclusive power and Hashem's empowerment of us. And also when we buy into that, when we get sucked into that, our experience of life becomes other than the goodness and the happiness that we want. So we don't live naturally in the clarity of Hashem's power. We live in otherness. We live in a space, in a reality where it seems that there are other powers, where people and things have their own real power, and they could actually hurt us. They could actually get in our way of what we want to do, what we need for ourselves. They could destroy our lives. They could destroy our day. They could destroy our mood. They could destroy our possibilities. And in this reality of otherness, resentment is natural. It's unavoidable. It's gonna happen. And it's gonna happen all the time. And we cannot stop feeling this way. Why? Because we're stuck within it. We can't get out of it. The only way to get out of resentment is to get out of the illusion that people and things have power. But we live there, right? We live in that illusion. That's our whole world. So if we want to stop being hurt by other people or things, we're going to talk about a proactive way, and we're also going to talk about reactive. The proactive way is we need to plant ourselves within a reality, within a mindset where all the power belongs to Hashem. We have to peel away the layer the curtain that hides Hashem's presence and get into that time zone where actually all the power belongs to Hashem. And that is the true reality. Everything that happens in the world and in our personal lives comes from one and only one source. It's from Hashem and nobody and nothing else. That's the reality we want to live within. And when we're there, when we're really aware of that, we protect ourselves. That's like an immunization from getting into resentment. That's the proactive thing that we could do every single day. And in that sense, Shema Yisrael, when we say Shema Yisrael in the morning or when we say it at night, it's not just a tefillah. It's not just meditation. It's not just something that we're saying. It's actually a call to action. We're also talking to ourselves. Shema Yisrael. Listen, tune in, get into this reality, Yisrael, my dear neshama, my dear girl, right? Listen, tune into that mindset because there's so much noise in the world and all of that noise obscures the truth. And when we get into that, when we remember that, resentment becomes, when we're in that resentment, we realize, hey, that's actually not true. We realize it's not possible for a person to do something to us. And that's something that we could do proactively. The more connected we are with Hashem's power, the less we get sucked into resentment and misery and shame and guilt. But let's talk about being reactive because I think that's where most of us are, right? Let's say right now I'm feeling resentful. Let's say we are feeling resentful. Somebody's feeling resentful. Well, how can we help ourselves? Reactively. Or when we're feeling angry or disappointed or annoyed with another person. If I sit there and tell myself, or if you sit there and tell yourself, hey, you're so silly. That person can't do anything to you, right? Don't believe, it's just a lie. It's not even true. Telling that to yourself does not help one bit. It will just make you feel worse. Not only will you still feel resentful, now you resent yourself for feeling resentful. You'll be upset with yourself about the fact that you're feeling upset. So without just telling ourselves to stop doing it, how can we help ourselves stop feeling resentful? So I want to take it in a different direction, okay? But first, here's a principle. There's a rule that we learn, a rule that is a major principle in the Baal Tanya's teachings, and this comes up many, many times, and it's something so precious. We can apply this rule to how we talk to ourselves, how we teach ourselves, and how we relate to every person and every challenge in our lives. And that principle is this. It's that darkness can never be chased away with a stick. 1,000 sticks cannot chase away even one drop of darkness, but a little bit of light dispels all the darkness. And the stick in this context represents beating ourselves up, beating our own selves up. We cannot get rid of resentment by berating ourselves, by telling ourselves that we shouldn't be feeling this way. We need to turn on the light. And what's the light? What's the opposite of resentment? Because resentment is the darkness, right? So what's the opposite of resentment? The opposite of resentment is, I think, neshama empowerment. It's when our neshama is bright. It's when our neshama is when we're tuned into our neshama, where the voice of our neshama is magnified and we feel our neshama's empowerment. We could stop feeling resentful when we turn up the volume of our neshama, when we lean into our neshama in two important ways. First of all, we want to just take on our neshama's trust in Hashem. So for 1 minute, we can just gently tell ourselves, okay, take a deep breath and accept the reality of what just happened. Accept the reality, this is coming from Hashem, and I trust Hashem that this is for my good and for my growth. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. Hashem, please don't test me again tomorrow. But right now, I trust Hashem that whatever it is that I am dealing with, it feels like it's coming from the other person, but it's coming from Hashem. So that's just, talking to ourselves gently, awakening our trust in Hashem, consciously attributing all the power, all the energy to Hashem. It's like taking that vacuum cleaner, instead of being sucked in to another person, just redirect it. I want to be sucked in to Hashem's embrace. But the second thing is a little bit different. You see, feeling the empowerment of our neshama is the opposite of feeling resentful. The opposite of feeling resentful is feeling empowerment of our neshama. Instead of resentful, we're going to feel empowered by the power of our neshama, which is by the power of Hashem. Owning our power of choice that comes with our neshama. That is the opposite of feeling resentful. And when we turn that on, we'll stop feeling resentful, because that's like turning on the light that chases away the darkness. And before I talk about that, I want to talk about exactly how to do that. I want to just talk about why it works. Why does this work? What's the connection? Why am I deciding that the opposite of resentful is empowered? Maybe the opposite of resentful is forgiveness. I don't think so. I think forgiveness is a stage. After we feel resentful, we'll also hopefully eventually feel forgiveness. But I don't think that resentment and forgiveness are opposites, because they're very different. It's resentment has a charge of negative energy, and forgiveness, there is no charge. It's just that release, that letting go, that like I'm not holding on to this anymore. But resentment has a charge, and empowerment has a charge. So, and that's part of why I'm comparing, I'm saying that that's the opposite, but really it's resentment always comes with another emotion. Always. Every time we feel resentful, in fact, I know that I'm getting stuck in resentful when I start feeling sorry for myself, because resentment always comes with self-pity. I'm angry at you, I'm sorry for myself. Feeling sorry for ourselves, self-pity, is always coupled with resentment. When we're feeling resentful or angry with another person, in that same moment, we're also feeling sorry for ourselves. The two sides of the same coin. Why? It's because resentment, by definition, means that another person has the power to hurt me or control me. And if that person has the power to hurt me and control me, then I am stuck. I'm a victim in some sense of that person, of that person's choices, of that person's behavior, of that person's power. And of course, I will feel sorry for myself. Every ounce of energy that I give to a person, they have the power over me. I'm sorry for myself, right? So resentment always couples with self-pity. And self-pity always couples with resentment. If I don't own my dignity, my worthiness, my preciousness, my beauty, I will end up feeling resentful towards whoever is not giving it to me. Because resentment and self-pity are two sides of the same coin. And this is where we can help ourselves. This is where we can help ourselves. This is where we can flip it around. We can turn on the light of our neshama's amazingness, our neshama's unstoppable empowerment. And here's what that could look like in a simple, practical way. Personally, when I'm feeling resentful, I know that what is happening is that the spotlight in my mind is turned directly towards another person. It's outward. There's a spotlight in my mind that's capturing, that's focusing on attention, on what's taking up more space, right? It's focusing on a detail, and that detail takes up more space. Visualize for a moment, if you can, a huge stage. And on that stage, there are many characters and many personalities, and there's props, and there's stuff going on. And the scene is dark. But then we have a spotlight, and it's going to focus on one character. In the stage, in the courtrooms, in the stage of our minds, whatever the spotlight is on, if it gives more space to that character or to that thing, right? There are so many different things, but whatever we put the spotlight on, that is magnified, that's enlarged, that sound, that volume is amplified, and it takes up more space. So when I am feeling resentful, what's happening is the spotlight in my mind is shining on another person. That's what it's outward. It's not inward. It's outward, and it's towards another person. That person is my power. And to get rid of that resentment, what I can do is grab the handle of the spotlight, take that spotlight and turn it inward. Turn it inward, away from that person, but more importantly, towards me, inside my own heart and inside my own mind. And we can ask ourselves in that moment, what's hurting me? What's hurting me? What do I feel like about myself? You know, when I started doing this, I'd be like, well, that person's an idiot. That person's so mean. That person is disgusting. They should have, right? But that's not going to help me because I can't control the other person. And that's the spotlight is shining on the other person. And with that, it takes away from the importance, from the magnitude of the impact that I could have on my own life. Because now I'm not the main character in my story. The other person is the main character in my story. So the first thing we want to do is shine the spotlight on ourselves. And we could ask ourselves, what's hurting me? What do I need? What would help me out here? What would help me feel better? What do I want? And then we could try to give it to ourselves, at least in a small way, in a healthy way, in a way that we could. I want to just share a personal example. You know, I was once having it was when my children were younger, and I was having a hectic morning, and I called my husband. I'm like, can you come help me? And for whatever reason, he was not able to come. And I hung up the phone, and of course I was feeling upset. I was feeling a little bit resentful. And I was like, and I'm like, no, wait, stop. I turned the spotlight inward, and I'm like, Sterny, what do I want? What do I want? What do you need right now? What do you want? That's like, what's the desire behind the desire for his help? And I realized, I was like, well, I want my morning to be a little bit easier because I'm so tired and I'm not feeling well. I just want to have an easier morning. And then I was able to say, okay, so that's not, you can't have it easier that way. What's another way you can make it easier for yourself? What's another way I can make it easier for myself? As I was talking to myself, right? And I realized that, okay, I could just do you know, at that time in my life, I was good. I would just make hot breakfast and, you know, more elaborate stuff. I'm like, okay, cereal and milk for breakfast. We don't do milk, but rice stream, but whatever. You get the point, right? No hot breakfast, easy. It doesn't matter. We're just going to do something easy peasy. A friend worked hard all day. She was rushing. She was coming. She was going. And at the end of the day, she came home and she right away started being busy making supper and serving her family. And her husband came home in the middle of all of that, sat down by the table to join the family. And at one point he asked her, because she was standing anyway, he said, do you mind passing the salt? And as he said that, she felt this flood of resentment, flood her consciousness, flood. It was like, how dare you? I'm standing, you're sitting. I didn't eat all day. You're sitting. How dare you ask me for the salt? And she also felt like he's asking for salt, like maybe the soup wasn't good enough or something like that. But because she'd been part of we had a group going at the time, and she was part of it, she was very conscious of that flood of resentment that filled her heart. And she right away said, hey, what do I need? What's bothering me? And she realized that what she needed was to be taken care of. And she's like, you know what? I was expecting my husband to take care of me. I need to take care of myself too. And of course, from that place, without resentment, she can have a conversation about it. She can say, you know, when you come home, I would appreciate if X, Y, Z before you sit down at the table. Or I appreciate if you don't ask me for stuff when I'm so busy. Whatever it is, she can make a request. But the honesty that she was able to have and the awareness that she had all of a sudden changed the dynamic in her marriage. Because before this, what would happen is she would feel resentful. She would sulk. She would go into silent mode. She would shut down. She would be somewhat removed and distanced, and he would be responding to that. And that would start a negative spiral that could continue for days. Literally, it could continue for days. And I'm sure you all know what that looks like, right? Because we all live in we all do the same stuff. We all have, that's resentment. Resentment is so toxic. But because she was aware of it, she was able to right away shift things around and say, hey, what do I want? What do I need? What do I need to do for myself? And she was able to, repair that and take responsibility for the fact that, hey, she just ignored herself the entire day, pushed herself the entire day, and she was expecting him in 1 minute to fix all of it. And of course, she was coming to the relationship very hungry. She needed to eat before coming to the relationship. We need to come to our relationships full. So that's just another example of what this looks like and what we're talking about when the spotlight, that's the tool, okay? When we're feeling resentment, when we're feeling resentful, when that resentfulness floods our consciousness, usually what's happening is the spotlight in our mind is focused, hyper-focused on another person, what they could have done, what they would have done, what they should have done, what they better do next time, and what we're gonna do to get them to do that. And all of that, it eats us up. It creates negative energy and it doesn't do anything. What we want to do is turn the spotlight inward to our own mind, to our own hearts, because the opposite of resentment is neshama empowerment. First of all, trusting Hashem. And then secondly, taking in that empowerment by Hashem to choose everything we think, say, and do. And so when we look inside our hearts, we can ask ourselves, what do I need to do for myself? What do I need to think about that can help me? What do I need to, how am I going to give myself what I really want and need? How am I going to take care of myself so that I feel better in this moment? And that flips over the energy of resentment. And from there, it doesn't mean that now we're going to just let the other person do anything they want. It doesn't matter because we're not looking at them. No, from that place of awareness that we are that key player in our lives, we are the most important person. We have the biggest impact in our lives. From that awareness, we could engage and we could re-engage. And when we're not feeling resentful, we could have a huge impact on, we can make requests with dignity. We could engage from a place of calm and set boundaries. And that's not resentful. That is beautiful. Okay. I said it was going to be a 15-minute opening, and I think it was a half-hour opening. I apologize for that. It took longer than I thought it would. But I'm going to read through the chat, and if anyone has questions, you could unmute yourself. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to share something from the chat here, a question that someone's asking. But if you have a live question, if you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so someone's asking a fantastic question. She's saying, so when someone hurts us or brings us emotional pain, whether intentional or unintentional, are we saying that Hashem used them as a messenger to hurt us? And it's a very, I think this is a very sensitive thing, because every single person is 100% accountable for their behavior. Every single person is accountable for their behavior, right? So I can't say, well, Hashem was just using me to hurt you. Chas v'shalom. That's the worst thing that a person could say. Right? Each of us is 100% accountable for our behavior. Whether we hurt people or we're kind to people, every word that comes out of our mouths, everything we do, and even how we think about other people, we are responsible 100% for our behavior. At the same time, for myself, or between me and my life, if I experience pain, if I experience frustration, annoyance, yes, I need to know that the other person it's not coming from them. For whatever reason, Hashem needed me to experience this. It's not that Hashem is doing it to hurt me. Hashem is doing it for my good and for my growth. Do I see the good? Maybe not. Maybe I never will. Do I see the growth? I don't see it right now, but 100% we know, we trust that Teva HaTov L'Heitiv, Hashem is good, and the nature of good is to do good. So if it feels bad, that's because he's Hashem and we don't understand him. And I say this not with chas v'shalom indifference or cold-heartedness to terrible pain that each of us has in our lives, that we don't understand, that we don't want, and that we beg Hashem every single day to bring us revealed goodness. And yet there's this other person, it's not coming from them, it's coming from Hashem. And I think the king of this and the quintessential lesson that we see this in the Torah is from Yosef HaTzadik, who when Yaakov Avinu passed away, the brothers of Yosef's brothers, were concerned. They didn't apologize. They didn't come to him to get closure and say, by the way, we never apologized. They didn't apologize. Very fascinating. All they did, they came to Yosef and said, you know what? We're terribly afraid that now you're going to take revenge. Now you're going to hurt us. Could you imagine? We're afraid of you. They didn't even say, please don't. They didn't say, we're sorry. They just said, we're afraid you're going to hurt us now in retaliation for the terrible things that we did to you. And they did terrible things. They tried to kill him. And then they tortured him. They abused him terribly. They abused him verbally, psychologically, physically. They ruined his life. If anyone ever ruined someone's life, they ruined his life. Sold him as a slave to strangers, to live a life as a servant, as a tortured soul, having no idea what would ever become of him. That was torture. You know what he said to them? First of all, he didn't say, don't worry, it's okay. He didn't say that. He said, he said, don't be upset. Because Hashem sent me here. You didn't send me here. Hashem sent me here. Hashem sent me to this place. This is a challenge. My life happened between me and Hashem. And Hashem did it for a purpose, to sustain the whole world. There was a purpose to it. So Yosef HaTzadik was blessed to see that purpose, to see that goodness, for things to turn out in a revealed way. And I want to bless each and every one of us to see the goodness immediately of any challenge and any apparently negative, any negative things that we experience in our lives, anything that people do to us, we should see that it comes from Hashem and that it is for the good of ourselves and other people. But the mindset that Yosef had was from the beginning. He didn't have that mindset only afterwards. The whole time, he had Hashem's name on his lips all the time. He had that consciousness of Hashem's presence all the time. And that's why throughout his stay in slavery, he was a happy person. He was not a resentful, miserable, bitter man. He was a happy guy. He radiated, good cheer. And I think that's to me, that's my hero when it comes to resentment, for sure, and other things, but for sure about resentment. I love this. It's a great question. Let me just repeat this because I want to put it into context of the tool. Okay, so someone's asking that they want to be close. I want to be close to a certain person. I want to have an intimate, close, emotionally connected relationship, but the person is not responsive, and this makes me feel resentful, and also it makes me feel resentful, in general, and especially when it comes to doing something for the other person. I don't feel like doing something for them because why should I do things for you if you don't want a close relationship? So I think this is a perfect example of what we're talking about, the spotlight. What in this feeling of resentment, hey, you're not responding to me. You're supposed to be responding and you're not. You want things from me and you have these unreasonable expectations considering that how much you invest in the relationship, right? What happens if you turn the spotlight inward and you ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? What have I lost here in this moment? And you know what? Maybe you want emotional closeness and you're not getting it from this person. Can you get it somewhere else? Can you get it from a different family member? Can you get it from a different person in your life? Can you give it to yourself? Can you give yourself that wonderful validation, that big person, be the big person that maybe you want the other person to be for yourself? Give yourself that hug, that validation, that approval. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the relationship with the other person. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a conversation with them and say, hey, I noticed that, when I call, you very often don't, but you don't answer, or you tell me you're going to call me back soon, but I'm assuming you already did that because this is an ongoing thing, right? So just, this is what they want. The conversation didn't help. Maybe you have another conversation, but in between the conversations, what you want to do is turn that spotlight inward, identify what you want, what you need, what that hurt is. Give a name to it. I feel rejected. I feel abandoned. I feel lost. I feel alone. Whatever it is for you, and try to feed that need, address that need, feed it, and recognize that ultimately you are the key player in your life. And when it comes to doing something for the other person, am I doing it because because they do things for me, or can I give because it's the right thing for me to do, even though I'm not getting what I need necessarily from them? And I'm not saying that you should. It's a question to ask yourself. Can I give to this person even though I am not getting what I really need? But I would think it's better to hold on to what is of the relationship and don't lose what you have in your effort to gain what you don't have. Or you could have I always say this, and you've heard this from me, even if you've just been joining this, I'm very big on requests. Just say, hey, I would so much appreciate talking to you. I noticed that a few times when I call, it's never the right time. When is a good time? When can I call you? When is a good time in your schedule on a regular basis that I can, that we can chat for more than a couple of minutes, for 10 minutes, let's say, for 10 straight minutes. And maybe she'll say never. It's okay. You have to be prepared when you make a request to get that no. But thanks so much. Okay, someone is asking here, okay, so I'm not feeling resentful, but I'm feeling in pain. I'm feeling sad. I'm like, whoa, I wanted X and I got Y. I wanted love, I got rejection. I wanted connection, I got loneliness. I wanted something and I'm not having. Forget the other person. When I look inside my own heart, there's pain. There's just so much pain. What do I do with that? So really, pain is a topic in itself. We're going to be getting to that in 2 weeks. But just because you're asking it now, I feel like, you know what? The pain is real. And we need to, be compassionate to ourselves with the pain. If you would see someone else in pain, if your friend would call you and she would be in pain, what would you do for her? Whatever it is that you would do for her, do for yourself. Slow down, be gentle with yourself, do something nice for yourself, speak compassionately to yourself, and deal with the hurt. But that doesn't, I always say all of these tools are not about stopping to being human. None of this, I don't think, our goal is not to stop being human, chas v'shalom. What our goal is to stop letting our humanness be a limitation to our joy, to our possibilities, to our happiness, right? To that close relationship that we want with the close people in our lives. And someone said it on the chat very well. We could feel hurt even though we believe in Hashem. That's not a contradiction. I love this conversation on the chat. It's like a private Farbringen right here. So if Hashem, this is another good question here, okay? If Hashem sent this person to say whatever Hashem needed me to hear, okay, how do I transform that message into lesson understood? My mother said something very wise when we were children, and she said it many, many times. She said, everybody teaches you. Some people teach you how to be, some people teach you how not to be. I thought that was very, very wise, right? Some people teach you how to be, some people teach you how not to be. So not everything that someone tells us is a lesson that I'm supposed to learn and I'm supposed to change and I'm supposed to grow. Maybe this is just for a test. Someone told me recently that they were walking down the street and somebody stopped them and said something very, very unpleasant. Oh, your husband, he ignored my husband's call or whatever, something totally unhealthy boundaries and, inappropriate. And there was another person there and she felt embarrassed. And it was just awkward. Right? So what's the lesson? The point is not what am I supposed to learn from this? For whatever reason, Hashem needed me to have this aggravation, this embarrassment, this pain. And I want to ask myself, okay, what do I need right now? And this person, needed compassion. She just needed love. She needed validation. It wasn't about what am I supposed to learn from this. You know what I mean? There was nothing, it was a way of practicing her, validation and dignity and worthiness. It was just a way of, it was like a workout, a spiritual workout for her to practice giving herself the compassion and the approval and the, relating to herself in a way that she wanted to, that she needed to practice for whatever reason. So that wasn't so much the lesson, but the skill that was practiced. But sometimes it's a lesson. Sometimes we could say, just because it's unpleasant doesn't mean the other person is wrong. Maybe the person is criticizing us, and maybe there is something we could learn from it. Maybe when we're not feeling so resentful, we could actually say, hey, maybe the person has, I don't like what they said, and I don't like how they said it, but maybe they have a point. Maybe I could have been nicer. Maybe I was wrong in the way I behaved. When we're not feeling so resentful, we're able to take more responsibility for our behavior, and we can actually, find a grain of truth sometimes when somebody's giving us that criticism, even if that criticism comes, in an unpleasant way. Beautiful message. Someone shared, when we get our ego out of the way, we are telling Hashem, your agenda is my agenda. I don't have my own agenda. I am here to let your light shine. Beautiful. Thank you, Chaya. And someone's asking, should I rather be angry at Hashem instead of the person? And I want to say yes. In other words, Hashem, our relationship with Hashem could handle anger, it could handle frustration, it could handle, obviously we express our disappointment, our pain to Hashem, and I think we always want to be respectful to Hashem, but definitely we want to take our pain 100%. We want to take our pain to Hashem. And even if we're feeling angry and hurt and disappointed, I think our relationship for Hashem could absorb it all. And we want to be authentic with Hashem. We want to really, spill our hearts. We don't want to use that anger as an excuse or a free pass to do angry things, but to express our anger in words. Absolutely. There's that's where it belongs. That's where we want to place it. It's very unhealthy. First of all of this, what I'm talking about today, are things that we want to tell ourselves. They're not things to tell other people. Okay, we want to tell this to ourselves. Other people, when they tell us about their suffering and their pain and whatever they're going through, and even their resentment, we just want to be with them and hold space for whatever it is they're feeling, unless they want our advice, unless they want our input and our questions. If it's a good friend, I know for myself, I'm a good friend, I want them to challenge me. I want them to say, by the way, did you think about that? Did you consider, what do you want? What do you want here? Where's the spotlight? After I vent. First, hold space for my emotions. And I'll tell you why I think it's important to first hold space for that initial reaction, instinctive emotion. Let's put all this work that we're doing, every moment that we let Hashem make a difference to our emotions, we are giving Hashem and ourselves, we're giving the world a gift. We are bringing the Aleph of Geula into our lives and into the world. Every moment that we let Hashem make a difference, we are creating what is called in many Sfarim a dira b'tachtainim, a dwelling place for Hashem here in this world. That's what we're doing. Every moment when we let Hashem make a difference. So now if I feel that pain, and I feel it deeply, profoundly, like with my whole body, right? And it really hurts, on all the layers of my consciousness, right? And then from there, I use these tools to let Hashem's presence make a difference, to let my belief and my trust in Hashem make a difference, to let my belief and attachment with my neshama, with the part of Hashem within me make a difference. Now, that made a big difference. Now I brought a huge dose of Geula into this world. But if I never felt the pain, if I held no space for it at all, if I didn't allow myself to be present with my human emotions, then these tools did nothing. Hashem did not make a difference. I was like this before, I'm like this after, no difference. I didn't have any feelings. Hashem didn't make a difference in my heart. I didn't just build a base of mikdash for Hashem in my heart, because there was no hole that I had to fill with light. There was no darkness that had to be transformed into light. There was no space that was so empty of Hashem that it hurt terribly. Do you hear what I'm saying? So people think that if you're on a higher level, quote unquote, right? Which to me doesn't really make sense. But if I'm a higher level, if I'm more spiritually mature, I'm not going to feel so hurt. I don't subscribe to that belief. I believe sensitive people will feel things deeply, will feel things profoundly. And in that space of our feeling, there's room for transformation. And that's where we invite Geula, and that's the beauty of what we're doing here. So if we never feel bad and sad and resentful, then we never have that opportunity to make a dira b'tachtainim, to make a dwelling place for Hashem here in this world, to transform the galus into Geula. We don't do that. We don't do that work. We're out of the ballpark. We're out of the game. But personally, for me, I'm happy to be in the ballpark. I want to be in the game, even if it means feeling the pain, feeling the resentment, feeling the frustration, feeling the misery, and feeling the self-pity. I'll get out of it. But the fact that I feel it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, doesn't mean that I'm spiritually undeveloped, doesn't mean that I don't have bitachon or connection. No. It means that I'm a sensitive human being, exactly as Hashem designed me to be. And now, with that sensitivity, with that personality that I have, with the weaknesses and all that, all the traumas and triggers and whatever it is, now I have the potential to transform this space into Geula by letting Hashem's presence make a difference. So that's what the work is about. Wow. Wow, that's very inspiring, that you're never angry with Hashem, even though you've been through so much. We can all learn from you. You have so much humility and so much gratitude that you're so blessed. And thank you for blessing us with your wisdom. Somebody's asking a fantastic question. She writes, what you're saying is so true, but can you address when someone was mistreated by a parent as a child and they still feel resentment towards them? I'm so glad you asked this question, because we never talked about, because we didn't talk about this, and it's an important thing to talk about. So what you're saying is so true, but can you address when someone was mistreated by a parent as a child and they still feel resentment towards them? I don't think that, as you work through, I think the same tool will help you. What you want to do is when you're feeling that resentment towards the parent, right? What you're doing is that parent, you're putting yourself back into your childhood mode where your parent had all the power and you did not. You were not the key player in your life. Your parent was the key player in your life, right? So what you want to do is turn the spotlight. Instead of focusing on what your parents should have done and would have done and could have done and how they did so many things wrong, forget about them for a minute. Not for a minute. Don't put the spotlight on their behavior. Instead, turn the spotlight, because you've had it there for enough time, right? You understand exactly what they did wrong. You have very good clarity about that. What you want to do to heal is turn the spotlight inward and ask yourself what you need and what you want, and hold that brokenness, because it is brokenness. Hold that brokenness, recognize it, give it space. And real healing is going to come when you have a self that's big enough to comfort and embrace and wipe the tears off that little person inside of you who is so hurt and so needy for a loving, connected parent. So don't focus on the past. Focus on right now. Build a self The work that we're doing here in this group, week after week after week, is going to help you do that. I very much recommend joining an in-person group. If you live in Borough Park, reach out to me, info@energizedliving.org, or reach out to 718-576-0338, and we will put you in touch with a new group that started. Get in touch or start a group of your own, because the work is developing a self. When you have a self that's big and you own, it's an inner island of compassion, of courage, of goodness, of strength, of resilience, of dignity, and most importantly, of unstoppable value, unchangeable value, untouchable value. When you have that, from that place inside of you, you want to be able to give yourself what you need. But for sure, for immediately take the spotlight off of what they did, take the spot off of the past and turn it inward now. Go deep inside and ask yourself, what do I need? Recognize the brokenness. Hold space for that brokenness. Be compassionate towards that brokenness. Take good care of yourself and don't abuse yourself anymore. Be nice to yourself. Be respectful to yourself and stop that pattern of abuse to yourself, because that is the best way you can heal. And when you do this for yourself, naturally, like we said before, you cannot chase away the resentment with a stick, right? But with this, you're turning on the light. Like we said before also, right? Neshama empowerment, true self empowerment. You're going to magnify that true self. When you do that, naturally, you'll find space for forgiveness, for compassion towards your parent or towards your parents, if it's to both of them. And I don't think that that's a goal. That's something like it's a byproduct. It's going to happen eventually, somewhere down the road. But it will take at least a year or two of nurturing a self, practice turning that spotlight inward and taking good care of yourself from that place of your true self. I mean, we could do a whole session just on this, and we get there later on in the principles. Okay, so keep coming back here too, because we're moving through topics week after week. But thank you for that question, and I want to wish you hatzlacha on your journey, because it's an important one and it's a big one. Okay, there's such great conversation on this chat. I'm not reading everything. So she's asking a very good question regarding, you're telling me to look inward and see what I need. What do you mean? I'm not able to change what I need. I need a healthy mother. I have an unhealthy mother. I'm so glad you asked this question, because it gives me the opportunity to clarify. Go a little deeper. What do you need? You need love. You need validation, you need support, you need approval, you need to be accepted and respected and cherished by someone you respect, right? So all those things, first of all, a group could give it to you, because a group is strong, a group is powerful, a group has so much energy. A group could give it to you. Even and I'm not into telling the whole group, oh, I have a terrible relationship with my mother, or I had a terrible trauma in my childhood. You don't need to. All you need to do is say, I need to be approved and validated by somebody big. Can the group be that for me? And that's a beautiful way to get it. And over time, you will be that someone. Yourself will be that big person that you really, really respect. And then when your real self that you respect so much turns to the broken parts of yourself and holds the brokenness and says, I love you, I'm with you, I'm here with you, I will never, ever abandon you, that feels very healing. So you can't give yourself a different mother, but you could mother yourself. You could be the mother to yourself. I hope that answers the question. Someone's asking, I tend to talk back and stand up for myself. How does that fit in here? In other words, she'll say, I'm not taking this. I'm going to say it like it is. That was pretty rude what you did. You know what? That's anger. Okay, that's not resentment. That's anger. You're just kind of letting it loose, right? we all want to work on engaging from a place of calm rather than anger, but give yourself time, give yourself space. And I don't think, an occasional authentic outburst of like, ouch, I was really hurt, I don't like it, that was pretty rude. I personally think you see, even in these comments, like, I'm gonna say it like it is, for me, let's say, is, instead of saying, I'm gonna say it like it is, a lot of these comments it's not like it is, it's like it is for me. Right? Or that was pretty rude what you did. Instead of saying that, that's your fight or flight instinct talking. Why? Because you're fighting and you're flighting, right? Imagine if you just said, I am really hurt by what just happened. That to me is a healthier outburst. And that's what I work towards. My instinct is also, that was so rude, that was so mean, that was this, that's my instinctive go-to. But what I work towards is to say, ouch. That hurt. I didn't like that, because that is not fight or flight. That's my hurt talking. That's my need talking. I hope that's clear. What if we are no longer resentful, but we no longer feel the same about the person who initiated the emotion? How do we distance ourselves without hurting them or making them feel guilty for what happened? This is a really good question. I'm no longer resentful, but I still don't want to, I don't feel the same towards the person. So first I want to challenge you on that. Are you truly not resentful? Is that honest? Is that being authentic? Just that's an important question to ask yourself. And I do think it's possible to say, hey, I'm not resentful. I'm not angry at this person, but honestly, I now see that person, I don't trust that person, and I don't want to have the same relationship I used to have. That's a totally different thing than resentment, right? That's saying, okay, I'm accepting this person how they are. I'm gonna accept the reality. But I just don't want to have that close relationship anymore. I think that we want to be very careful. We want to be very honest, first of all, if we're feeling, if we're truly not feeling resentful, number one. And number two, we want to be very careful about making those judgments. And these are the situations where I feel like it is good to consult with another person who gets you, who knows the situation personally, because sometimes we put a red X on somebody's nose. We decide that they are this. We give them judgments. We give them labels. We give them ABCs. And maybe with that we kind of create limitations on the relationship. And it could be that those labels and those ABCs are going to protect us. It could be that they're going to be helpful, but because they have such profound ramifications, I do think it's very important to be very cautious about doing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you everyone for joining. And I want to just say a huge thanks to everybody who referred and recommended their friends to join this group. Every week when I hang up, my kids joke, they're like, oh, because like an hour before we started this, I was sitting on the couch and I was exhausted. And my kids are like, okay, we have to just come back to you after you do the group, because then you're going to have so much energy. You're going to be bouncing around. They know already that this discussion gives me so much energy. And I know that it gives everybody so much strength, because being part of this connection, it's talking about Hashem. It plugs us into Hashem's truth, and it gives us access to that strength that we have inside of ourselves and the beautiful people that we really are. So thank you for being part of this, and continue to recommend your friends, because this group could grow. And yeah, thank you very, 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 very much. I look forward to seeing you again next week with Hashem's help. Take care.